Hello everybody, Ben Woodruff here, and in today's video I'm going to be doing something a bit differently. Today's video is entitled Forbidden Archaeology, with good reason. You see, I've lived in Utah most of my life, and Utah is an incredible place with a rich history and an even richer prehistory. We've had people living here for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years, all the way back to the Ice Age. And there's a lot of history to that, and there's a lot of archaeological sites. And honestly, there's a lot of archaeological sites that are getting built over, just completely mowed over. And a lot of it, the powers that be just kind of don't care. In some instances, there's been sad instances where archaeological sites have been intentionally kind of downplayed to kind of, let's just kind of start building here. And in other places, they just didn't even know. There's some sites that the archaeologists have been made aware of it, the state archaeologists, and they're aware of it, but it's like, okay. So what am I getting at? Well, my area has just been filled in the past maybe 10 years of just filled in. It's just a sea of gray rectangles. And the knowledge is getting lost. Most of these sites are gone now, or they're on private land, which is good because then they're at least protected. But people who are trying to piece together history are wholeheartedly unaware of these sites. That's sad. Part of my whole purpose of having this channel is to get information out there. I want people armed with knowledge. If you want to have a good understanding of history and prehistory, you have to understand who and what were there before. The fact that most of Utah was covered by ancient Lake Bonneville, that's huge. People aren't aware of that. That factors into things. So on this video, I'm going to give you a Google Earth map tour, and I'm going to do a voiceover, and I'm going to show you some of my favorite secret archaeological sites. Now, some people will say, well, you shouldn't do that because then people will know about it. Well, it doesn't matter at this point. Some of these places are destroyed or are about to be destroyed or are on private land. And so I want people to be aware of their existence. I want historians, prehistorians, and archaeologists and anthropologists to all be aware of this site. And I want the general public to be aware of these sites as well, because there's a rich history involved. So forgive me for sharing these, but we're going to talk about them. We're going to go through, and I'm going to do a 3D Google map tour, and we're going to see Ben Woodruff's Forbidden Archaeology. I just love that we have this technology right now. So here we are in Lehi, Utah. This is what the locals since the late 1800s have called Indian Cave. Now this is a site with a very important set of archaeological things that it provides. So first of all, on top, right where I'm pointing at, there is a cave where people would stay. There was ceremonial stuff. I don't care that I'm pointing this cave out anymore because it's been long since looted and people have known about it. Now even the locals don't know about it. Now, if we're looking around here, if you go on the back side, you'll notice this red mark. And if you look closely, you can see there's actually several pits dug out. There were burials on this backside, and there are still burials there. Nobody seems to care, and nobody's doing anything about this fact. In fact, Lehi City was going to put a big old water tower about it, and we met with the the city elders and told them, hey, this is a very important archaeological site. And they said, oh, okay, well, we'll kind of set it aside and designate it as such. But right here, we're zooming in to the cave. It's pretty accessible, but when you're right on top of it, it's actually hard to find. There's a smaller cave that a lot of people think is it, but this is the actual quote-unquote Indian cave. Now, zooming out down below, these rocks are why people came to the site. This site right here is where people would harvest a type of chert for making arrowheads and spearheads and stone knives. There's tons of partially finished artifacts, flakes and cherts. There's hammer stones that you can see with the cobbling on both sides, all around here. And we brought one of the state archaeologists out to see this site because we were very excited about it. And the state archaeologist that came out was just kind of like, well, that's interesting. It's just sort of a general source of flint and chert. Now, if you see these houses down in this section down below here, all of these houses on this bar, originally, there were rocks, big boulders there, and there was debutage debris fields underneath where people sat and flint knapped. And now it's all gone. It's totally and completely gone. But looking out and looking across the way, if we're going to zoom out here, and here's the Jordan River. The Jordan River flows from Utah Lake to the Great Salt Lake. And this is quote unquote Indian Crossing. Now this right here, this is the Thanksgiving Point Gardens. There used to be a Fremont Village here, and now it's the Gardens. But Indian Crossing itself is is a site where Native Americans would cross, pioneers would cross, Johnson's Army crossed there. Looking at Indian Crossing here, let's get a little more of a three-dimensional view here. You see that there's this rise that runs along the river. They would come down and they'd cross here. There's tons of artifacts right at the crossing. But right where this house is built in the middle of a Fremont village on the other side of the road. And you can also see that there are some cottonwood trees here. And they're right next to this kind of power structure here, this electrical plant or whatever it is. This is a spring, it's a freshwater spring. And the village was built right next to it because that fresh water is cleaner than the water in the Jordan River. Now, this dirt road over here, so again, these houses are built literally right on top of the village. And in fact, where I'm zooming in now, in the middle of the road, I think there's a gate. I don't even think you can go down this road anymore. But right here in the middle of the road itself, there are artifacts. Artifacts literally in the middle of the road. And so let's zoom out a little bit here, get a perspective again. And you can see, turning around, up in the upper right-hand corner, you can see Indian Cave. And it's a great view. You can flint nap up there and you can look down into the river valley and see, when do the buffalo come in? When do the herds of wild horses come in, like the prehistoric wild horses? When do the mammoths come in? So you know when to go down and hunt them. And that's mammoths, of course, before the Fremont. But the Fremont villages, everybody crossed here anciently. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit more. Now we're in Cedar Valley. And you can see where this new housing development has been built in. Right here is a Fremont pit house site. And you can see that right where these houses are, there was a village. And the only thing left of it is this right here. It'd be great to do a LiDAR scan of this, but you can see it from above. But all to the right where all those houses are, there was a village there that I've seen many times. Now across this little rise here, if you look, there were, and still are, petroglyphs. But right where I'm looking, right here where this trackway goes through, there was a really beautiful petroglyph. And this one really beautiful petroglyph, I showed it in one of my other videos about how to make petroglyphs. And they drove over it with a bulldozer, intentionally broke it in half and drove off with it. So I think there was intentions to cover up the fact that this was a site. Now this little tiny rise here right in the middle also had pit houses, still does, unexcavated, but it also used to be covered with petroglyphs, and most of those petroglyphs have been destroyed and a few of the smaller ones have been stolen off. Now zooming out a little more, we're going to go to another village. Look how close these actually are. This was really a cool site. It was unexcavated, and this was loaded with artifacts, all just on top of the surface, right in the sagebrush. Now, I train eagles and hawks, and I hunt with them, and I used to hunt jackrabbits. I'd go on top of these hills, and they'd chase the rabbits down below, right where the center is. And that was a Fremont village, and now it's a bunch of gray rectangles. Now, they did preserve, over here, there's a pullout, and right here in this sagebrush, I can't remember which one of these two patches right here, but there are some petroglyphs, and you can go over and take a look at them. So at least those were, kind of preserved. But again, a lot of these guys were very close. Now, because these haven't been formally excavated, it's hard to know if they were all at the same time or if they were at different time periods. Now, this was a biggie. This is the mouth of West Canyon. Now, all along this ridge, there were pit houses, very similar to at Fremont Indian State Park. And right where this quarry is, they have just taken out the biggest cluster of the pit houses. But there's still pit houses up along on top of these ridges. These used to be covered with juniper trees, and there was a fire that burned them down. You can see it hasn't recovered. Now, if we're looking up here, this is West Canyon. West Canyon had so many Fremont artifacts and pit houses. They were all along this little ridge right here. Now, right where kind of the road is there, you see that road? That's where the lower villages were. And back in the day, I've seen those. Now, there's a gate here, and this is now, fortunately, private property. It's like a cattleman organization, and I've talked to the people. They're going to let me go up there and film the site where some of the archaeological digs happened, amateur archaeological digs in the early 1900s. But my understanding is that if we go up West Canyon, that kind of the centralized little valley right here, we're going to zoom in and take a look at this, right here where it's open, that's where there was a whole bunch of pit houses, either right where that sagebrush is in the center or on the ridge there to the right. But those pit houses were excavated by amateur efforts of the time in the early 1900s. Now, this whole playa, you see where this is all spread out? All of this, I hunt with my falcons here. I fly them here, or I used to. Now it's privately owned. And also on the other side in these farm fields, I fly my birds over here. These have all been plowed up since the 1800s. It's all parceled off, and they'll plow it every few years. And whatever was there, whether it was a village or something, I'll always find artifacts just laying in the plowed fields. It's kind of wild. Now, this last site here, my friend owns this property. This section here, it's private, fortunately, and there is a freshwater spring that bubbles up from the earth. Now, back in the 1800s, across the road there, Camp Floyd was there. It's one of the biggest military installations in the country. This water fueled that. My friend now owns it, and you can see he's planting all kinds of native plants and plants that are useful and provide seeds or pollination. And even in the water, it's a registered preserve for an endangered species of fish, the least chub. But over here at the back, this whole section, people have been visiting not just the Fremont, but all the way back to the end of the Ice Age, the Archaic period, Basket Maker 1, Basket Maker 2. Artifacts are all over in these fields because animals would come here to the water, and the people would come here for the water and to hunt the animals. It's a magnet. And so it was an epic site for hunters to hang out. And my friend here who has this property, he is a perfect role model steward of the land. He is so good about preserving the land for animals and preserving the archaeology. I'm not going to mention his name because didn't ask permission, but he's got that site well preserved, and access is off limits. So now you can see these canyons, all these canyons. I've been up every one of these canyons that we're looking at, going up and down. They all do have artifacts. I've been on top of one of those mountains and found a broken Clovis point on the tip top of one of these little mountains. So just reviewing it again, West Canyon here, West Canyon right here. We had a huge Fremont settlement, and we had a village there on the edge of the mesa. We had a village there that is mostly turned into houses now. And of course, looking back over here, there's the Fremont village next to the springs. There's the Indian crossing where people cross the river. And then here's the Indian cave, which is also a strategic site where they would come in that big debris field below. That is where they would come to harvest their flint. It's pretty cool. And it's kind of interesting to share it all. So it's interesting to see it from this perspective. And it's sad that the whole world is all turning into gray rectangles now, but I think it's kind of important that people are at least aware of some of the history. This is another spot too, I forgot to mention. This little section right here, just kind of off to the left there, there was also a village here, and that all got bulldozed. That one had a lot of stone axes, like stone hand axes at that site. But that appeared to be a smaller village. I hope you enjoyed seeing this. I hope it's not too disheartening. I hope it doesn't rattle people. I know a lot of people get worried about showing sites, but again, these are sites that are already destroyed, and they're just going to get completely lost to time, completely lost to history. And I would rather some people out there besides me are aware that these sites at least exist, so they have a better understanding of the history of this area. But I hope you enjoyed learning this. I would love to hear your stories and see if you've also known of areas that have gotten mowed over. because there's something to be said about this. Because on the one hand, we got to save our history. But then there's the march of progress. Well, what's next? Well, what we're living in now, I live in like a normal house that was built in the 1970s, and I'm sure in 100 years it's going to be gone. It's going to be mowed down and made into new houses, probably bigger, fancier houses, and whatever history I have there will be gone. And you have entire civilizations wiped out because of drought or earthquake, and it could just change overnight or in a fairly short period of time. So on the one hand, we should save our history. We should learn our history. We should pass it down. And on the other hand, does it even matter? Yes and no. Of course, those who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it. Well, I think what we need to do is we need to live life. We need to live life. Now, because we live in an era of digital media and we have the ability to preserve records, we have verbal and written language, we can pass these things on, let's pass them on. But let's not be under the false pretense that everything has to exist just how it is forever, that change can never happen. No, change is inevitable. But it's good to learn, and part of living in the present is understanding the past and looking forward to the future and learning from past mistakes and what we can do in the future. So that's my hope, is that by making this video, gives you a little bit of insight and helps you have a better understanding of kind of this little region in Utah, how many archaeological sites. There's many more that I'm not going to share, but these are ones that are sites that are already destroyed or are going to get mowed over. And I thought, what's the harm? I've held onto this information for years. I might as well share it with people. So, but hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, if you could hit subscribe to my channel, it helps me a great deal. And always remember that life is a gift. So never stop learning and never stop exploring. We'll see you next time.